Okay, so lately I have been in my head about something, and I feel like this video is kind of my way of working through it. I've just been thinking a lot about what I actually want my life to look like, and not in like a life crisis kind of way, just more about noticing how much stuff and content and noise I've let in without really thinking about it. So I keep coming back to this idea of curation, actually being intentional about what you let into your life, your space, your time, what you're consuming, and even who you're following. Just simply asking yourself, does this actually feel like me? And honestly, the more I sat with this feeling, the more I realized I've been doing a lot of accumulating and not actually curating. What does it look like to curate your life, and where do you even start? I have a lot of thoughts, and I've been researching this for a while. And if you feel like any of this resonates with you too, I think you're gonna like this one. So let's get into it. Hi guys, welcome back to another video. I am very excited about today's video because it's something that has been on my mind a lot lately. But before we get into today's video, which is all about the art of curation and curating your life, I quickly want to talk about one of the most curated parts of my day, and it's kind of taken me a little while to get there. I have never been a big makeup girly. I would kind of always just follow the trends of what all the TikTok makeup girlies were talking about. But everything always felt like it was too much, or I was trying to be a version of myself that just didn't really feel aligned. And then I finally discovered Merit. So I want to thank Merit for sponsoring this video because I really feel like they were the first brand that I was like, oh, I feel like this was made for me and my lifestyle. And why I've come to love them so much more than other makeup brands is because they are minimalist makeup. And I mean that in like the best way. It's elevated, it feels elegant, but the whole system is designed so that you can genuinely feel put together in as little as a few minutes. I have been on this journey of actively trying to consume less and be more intentional of what I bring into my life. And this is just a part of my routine that feels entirely curated for me. I always start with the Great Skin Serum. It's lightweight, glowy, hydrates, everything just kind of sits so much better. And I'm a big advocate of SPF every single day. And the uniform is mineral sunscreen. It also has a sheer tint for that extra coverage. It's light and it blends so naturally, so it doesn't even feel like I'm wearing foundation. And this is what sold me on to Merit, the minimalist. It can be foundation or a concealer, so depending on the day, as much or as little as you need. So now we have our foundation. I've been reaching for the Flush Balm a lot lately. The color feels super natural and I love a little sun-kissed cheek moment. And then I like to just finish things off with the Brow 1980. This just adds a little color and volume. The Clean Lash. Unfortunately, I have very blonde eyelashes, so I always need to wear mascara to look alive every day. And I love that this one is just super simple and very natural looking. I also need to know, do you guys put mascara on your bottom lashes or is that just me? And last but not least, the Shade Slick to add a little moisturizing tint for the day. And of course, I have to mention the signature makeup bag. It comes free with every first order. I love using it as my everyday makeup bag because even the packaging feels very intentional and luxurious. Sets through my link are discounted up to 15% off, and I'll have everything linked below. Be sure to check out my Merit favorites and let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so that's the finished look. Curated, simple, intentional, which is exactly what today's video is about, so let's get into it. So this topic has been on my mind for a really long time, and if you clicked on this video and you're like, what on earth does it mean to curate my life? That is a great question. And honestly, this idea didn't even come to me until I heard the Note to Self podcast. So I will link the podcast episode down below, but Peyton Sarton, the voice behind the Note to Self podcast, did an episode on this idea, the art of curating your life. And it was really inspiring because I think if you're like me, you probably consume a lot of different types of media. You're constantly influenced by the people around you. And there's definitely nothing wrong with that. But I do think that over time we are slowly influenced by those around us and we kind of lose sight of what is curated towards us. What do we really like? What makes our style and our aesthetic the way that it is? Is it how we're being influenced, or is it something that we are actually curating for ourselves? And I feel like curation isn't minimalism. It's not a specific aesthetic. It's really being intentional of what you consume, what you bring into your life, and actively choosing something versus just passively accumulating things, which I wanted to bring this topic up because this is something that I feel like I'm still working on. I feel like something that we all kind of need to work on. I feel like we're in a day and age where it's just so easy to accumulate and follow trends versus really thinking about, what do I enjoy? What do I want to curate for myself? And I feel like there's a really big difference between collecting things and accumulating. One feels very intentional and one obviously just feels very fast paced, like kind of just happens to you. And unfortunately, we are in a world that is designed for us to be constantly consuming without really thinking. And I feel like for me, creation has become the act of slowing down and just thinking, is this for me? Does this actually belong in my life? And the two big topics that I think of is style and home, but you can apply this to anything: who you follow, how you spend your time, the different types of content that you consume. And in Peyton's podcast, she mentioned CBK, Carolyn Bessette Kennedy. And if you watch the show Love Story, you'll really get a sense that this girl like curated her life. And she probably didn't know it, but I think that's why we were so obsessed with her and so obsessed with the show. And I think another reason that we were so drawn to her is she was just completely herself. Her style was her own, her personality was her own. She really didn't care what anyone thought about her, but everything about her just felt very intentional. And I feel like she's a really great example of what curating your life can look like that feels very authentic to you. And if you guys are like me, I think this whole idea of curating your life really stems from the problem with more and overconsumption. For me personally, I feel like overconsuming just quietly makes me feel worse over time. Like there definitely is that hit of dopamine when I want to buy something trendy or someone is influencing me to get something. But then I'll kind of look back on my closet, my home, whatever it is, and realize that the things that I have collected or accumulated doesn't really feel like me. It doesn't really feel like my personality. I don't really feel comfortable in it, even if it might fit or it might work in my home. And I think that's because I am just acting on impulse and acting on like a dopamine fix versus thinking, is this really curated for me? Is this something that really fits into my lifestyle, my specific aesthetic? I was listening to another podcast recently that mentioned hedonic motivation and I think eudonic motivation. I might have those wrong, but hedonic motivation is all about kind of getting that quick hit fix of validation or anything that kind of guides your behavior into getting immediate pleasure. But I'll use social media as an example because anytime we are scrolling, we are wanting to get more likes, get more views. Those things create hedonic motivation so that we are getting pleasure instantly. And I'm sorry, I'm not a psychologist, so I might be getting this all wrong. And I'm sure you can look up the actual definitions and get a better sense of this, but I'm doing the best I can. And eudaimonic motivation is more around our personal experiences, our own personal ideas or pursuit of wanting to learn something new, wanting to get better at something. And some really great examples of these is maybe starting painting and painting in your free time and not sharing it with anyone, but just the joy of painting and wanting to get better at that is eudaimonic motivation. And how this applies to curating your life is I feel like we are just in this overconsumption culture where we are just wanting immediate gratification as soon as possible, whether that's through scrolling on social media or shopping for trends. It's kind of this constant dopamine cycle of buying and consuming because with hedonic motivation, it never really lasts very long. I've also come to realize in my own life how when I accumulate more things, it just feels like more noise in my life. I feel like I struggle to find my own sense of style. There's so much mental clutter around who or what I should be or the type of mom I should be. It's just so easy to constantly compare or try to adapt who you are to fit what you think you should be. I think a really funny and maybe not totally relatable reference is Steve Jobs. If you guys remember, Steve Jobs would wear the exact same outfit every single day. And I don't know, there's something really freeing about that idea of like taking away all of the mental decision making and clutter and noise and just being like, no, this is who I am and this is what I'm going to wear every single day. And it just frees up my mind to be able to focus on things that I really want to focus on. And so now I think kind of recognizing that is step one, and step two is trying to determine like what our actual taste is. Like, what do you like? Like if you take away the algorithms, if you take away the trends and you just think about personally what your vibe is, what your aesthetic is, what your style is, and honestly like what everyone else is doing. I think this is a little harder than it sounds, but something that I feel like I've been trying to do in multiple areas of my life is just pausing. I feel like a lot of times we are very quick to make decisions and we don't stop and ask ourselves, do I really like this? Does this fit into my life? Is this what I want right now? Or am I doing X, Y, and Z because I think people will like this? I think I'll be on trend. I'll feel more validated. And I think it kind of goes back to that hedonic motivation of a lot of times that it's just wanting that quick hit of dopamine. And I do this all the time. A lot of times I will buy something because I'll think, ooh, I think people will really like this, or I want to do X, Y, and Z because I think it'll get a lot of views. And I do feel like finding your actual taste for things is something that takes time. I think it's so easy for us to just want instant gratification and wanting to determine like how I'm going to curate my life like this very second. But it is something that kind of takes time as you start to really ask yourself what you like, what is your style, what is your aesthetic, and thinking about the things that you return to again and again and again that just make you you. I think how we curate our life slowly reveals itself over time based off of our repeated purchases, what you're constantly returning to versus impulse consumption. And I feel like for me, this is definitely something that is taking time. I'm still working on it. Like when the CBK TV show came out, I'm like, wait, do I need to be kind of a little more chic and dark and mysterious and very like, I don't give a F what anyone thinks. But then the more that I thought about that and like tried on that personality for myself, that's just not who I am at all. Like I love bright colors. I love clean whites. I'm a homebody, but I also love to be social and get out and dressed cute and meet new people. I'm like overly friendly to a fault sometimes, and that's just who I am. And I think leaning into who you are and what your personality is starts to reveal itself in how you're going to curate your life. When I think about people who knew exactly what their taste was, I think about Nora Ephron, who was a writer and a filmmaker, and she was known for some old school romantic comedies like You've Got Mail, Sleepless in Seattle, but everything about her felt specifically chosen, from her apartment to her writing, what she cared about. I feel like she paid attention to her life in ways that most people don't even bother to. And I think that really comes down to just having more self-awareness of who you are and what you like. And another example is Jenna Lyons, who is most known for being the creative director of J. Crew. Her taste is so specific and so personal that it ended up just becoming influential in itself. And why it works so well is because it's so genuinely her. And I feel like you guys probably know people that are like this, whether they are people you follow on social media or people in your personal life, that they just have their own specific sense of style and who they are that doesn't come from trends, and that's what makes them really interesting. Okay, so how are we actually going to start curating our life? First, we're going to try the pause rule. Before buying, following, committing to something, pause and ask yourself if this fits the life that you're trying to create. Another big step, I think, is just editing your life. And this can be small, but instead of thinking about adding things, think about things that you could remove that really just don't feel like you. This can look like going through your closet. This can look like going through your home. Maybe it's trying to be a little bit more intentional of what your algorithm is feeding you, because whatever you engage with is what it's going to continue to give to you. It's kind of like what you put in is what you're going to get back. And really start to ask yourself, do I like this? Does this feel like the person that I am right now? And even just thinking about your time, like what you say yes to, what you commit to is a form of curation too. And I feel like your calendar reflects your values. Better said than done. So this is one that I'm currently still working on. And I just discovered a book that I want to read called Slow Love by Dominic Browning, because I feel like we have very similar stories. She was a magazine editor that lost her job, and then she spent a year basically auditing her life. And what she found is that slowing down actually helped her figure out what she wanted. And I think about that a lot because that's pretty much what happened to me when I lost my job a year and a half ago. Unfortunately, sometimes it takes situations like that to stop and reflect and actually slow down enough to notice what's happening in our lives. And I think we're able to see the life that we have actually chosen or what's just kind of happening to us. There's a concept in Japanese design called ma, and it simply just means negative space. And if you're not an artist or a designer, you might not get this one entirely, but when there's negative space around something, that is what brings that thing into focus. And I kind of love that idea and framework for curation because I feel like what you leave out matters just as much as what you bring in. And then too, I think creation isn't something that's just one and done. It's an ongoing process. Like if I think about the life that I curated before I became a mom, it's completely different than the life I'm curating now. And we are constantly going to go through different phases in our life where we are readjusting, we are rebranding, we are re-curating this idea and life that feels like it's truly ours. But I think the point is, in this fast-paced, over-consuming culture that we have now, it just takes a little extra paying attention. And I feel like that's something that we always have to come back to and that we often forget, is just the art of noticing things, the art of paying attention, the art of curating. It sounds very romanticized, but I think it's really simple. I don't know what it is, but I feel like we always throw away the simplest things, and then that's what we end up coming back to because that's what we need. I also feel like when we start to pay attention to our own lives, we become more inspired by ourselves. This is something that I've been practicing a lot lately, is not using Pinterest as inspiration, but really gathering inspiration from my own life and things I'm doing in my day-to-day, no matter how mundane they are. Like, trust me, I am just like every other girl and love doing a full life rebrand on Pinterest. There's just something about kind of looking at your life, auditing what is working, what is not working, what feels entirely like me. Because I don't know, when I think about how I want people to perceive me, I want people to perceive me entirely as my own person. I think a lot of us want to be remembered by our style or our aesthetic as something that feels a lot like CBK. We want to feel like the decisions we make and the vibe that we give off is entirely our own. At least I do. Like, I like getting inspiration from other people or being compared to other people, but at the end of the day, I'm like, I want to be entirely my own person. And I don't think it comes down to having this idea of a perfect life. It's really just coming down to stopping and paying attention, because I think we're always going to be influenced in some way or another. Even when I never had social media, I was influenced by my friends and those around us. Peyton also mentioned in her podcast how people who collect things are usually just like very interesting people, and I could not agree more. I feel like this was such a big thing in generations before us, and I don't know anyone that collects anything, but I feel like people who collect things are so interesting, whether it's artwork, books. Like, there's just something about finding a unique interest in something and collecting it over time, or finding ways to tie that to an experience. Like, I love collecting artwork when I go on vacation and go to unique places. And I really think that those just bring such uniqueness into our space, into our lives, and they become stories to share. Personally, I've been very into collecting cups right now. I don't necessarily have the space for it, but nothing makes me happier than having a cute little cup for my morning water. I don't know, but I'd love to know if you guys collect anything and what it is that you collect. Currently, I'm also collecting hobbies, which has definitely been a fun one to have. And then the last thing I'll mention is really curating what you consume. And I feel like when we hear the word consume, we immediately mean social media, but consumption comes in so many different forms, whether it's books or Substack or articles. It could be film, it could be magazines, it could be podcasts. Like, there are so many different ways for us to consume, and I don't think consumption is bad, but curating your consumption and just being a little bit more aware of the type of content that you're consuming and the way that you're consuming it can really have an effect on how you're curating your life too. So that's something that I have been thinking about as well, and have been getting a lot more into books and hobbies. I really want to find some good Substackers. I don't know if that's what you call them, but I really want to find some good Substack people, writers to follow, and just continue to learn and consume in a way that I feel like is building up my knowledge around things, because I want to focus more on that eudaimonic motivation instead of the hedonic motivation. So just a little what's been on my mind lately YouTube video this week. I hope you guys liked it. If you have any questions, let me know, but this is something that I've personally been thinking about a lot lately, something that I've been trying to be more aware of, more intentional, really thinking about how I'm consuming less and starting to collect more. I hope it gave you a little something to think about. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.